morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from across the country and around the world. This is the Life Midwest Podcast, a social sciences podcast that sometimes interviews friends, sometimes talks about random things, and sometimes it's the good old kicking the motivational ass that you need around here. I'm your host, Kevin Palmer, and back with me this week, it's an episode of Ripley's Believe It or Not. I just exposed my age there, I think, but my good co-host and best friend, Wes Shirley, is back on the show.
Howdy, howdy. It feels good to be back. How have you been, man?
Man, I've been swamped. Lots going on in real life. Not that this is not real life, but you know what I mean? Like outside of the podcast and the production and workflow and all that. Just a lot going on. But I'm good. I'm good. Hanging in there. How about you? How have your adventures been?
Oh boy. I don't think the podcasting format has enough availability for me to get started. I've also been relatively swamped. A lot of different activities and adventures popping up. I completed my second job that I did for a short time. I saved some money. I invested in some things. I started other projects. I've been learning. I've been having just terrible misfortune and then coming back from it. And now I'm back on the podcast and feels good, man.
I gotta say, I'm curious. What are the misfortunes? If you can talk about that.
Oh yeah, sure. So it's not an episode of the Life Midwest with Wes back if there's not at least a small section dedicated to me bitching about some of the things that happened in my day. So yesterday in particular was just a fantastic day. I woke up late for work. And I was the first person in, meaning that the store was closed until I got there. It felt terrible. Within an hour of being at work, I got a call from my bank that my credit card had been compromised. Within an hour of learning that, I dropped my phone in such a manner that it hit the ground at a corner, skid across the floor, ran into something else, and the whole OLED panel, like the digitizer, the thing that produces the image beyond the glass, shattered just into spider shatters at first, and then some weird glitchy shit, and then a dead screen that doesn't work. And I have a Google phone. It's like a Pixel. Google's it's like Apple, but different, I guess, where you can integrate all your passwords and stuff into it. So my two-factor authentication for pretty much everything was on that phone, and I had no way to log into anything. So I had to rush and go get a new phone. I finally got that phone set up with all my shit on it, except for an authenticator, which is my two-factor authentication for a whole bunch of other things. But that's a story for another day.
That sounds fantastic. Just to use your word again, that when something like that happens to me, I try to relish in the moment, and I look at the silver lining of it, and I'm like, oh, cool, time for a new toy. Was there any part of you at least that looked at it like that, or no?
Oh yeah, and I totally got a new toy.
Very nice.
I know you're not a fan, but I got me a Samsung, a Galaxy.
I'm not keeping this part in here.
I got the Z Fold, which is precisely a toy. I'm not sure this thing has any bit of functionality to it beyond being part tablet, part phone, part oddity. It's well designed. It's well built. So you didn't get the flip, because there's a flip too, but you got the fold. I got the hot dog as opposed to the hamburger.
So desu ne. I hope the screen keeps working longer than a couple of months for you, buddy.
Oh, well, I have a friend who had it for now almost they had the first generation, and they're going on 2 years. And that was,
I just don't like that you can see the crease in the screen. And I get that the technology is not perfect and it hasn't been perfected, but I think that's why I'm not super keen on it. I think I sit there and I see another company do something like that. And I go, man, I can't wait until Apple perfects that, because that's just kind of what Apple does, is they take something, they may not be the first person to do it, but they do it in a way to where it's many people would agree that it's perfected or improved, etc. But you can see the crease in the screen, and I guess my eyes would just it's almost like that slight OLED burn in. You know what I'm talking about, Wes, with OLED TVs, that slight burn in that you get.
Kind of like a old plasma TV where you could if you left it on or some shit.
Yeah, your eyes just immediately get drawn to that, and I think that's what turns me off about it. But I'm happy for you, and it's definitely a new toy. For the record, I want everyone to know that yes, I'm an Apple person, but I'm the first person to admit that I do have an Android phone that I would enjoy. If I went with Android, I would get a Pixel. I don't want to be accused of being an Apple fanboy. It's just that I just don't like Samsung. I'm very, very much like a fan of like what Google does, though.
So here's the cool thing about Samsung: you can turn off all their stuff, most of it. And I'm like, my environment has not changed one bit. I just had to turn off the Samsung like built-in apps and like delete them all because I'm not going to use them. And I ported it from my other phone, so my user experience is exactly the same. It's like I'm using a Pixel, except for it's actually a better phone. Like, I don't know anything about the new Pixel, obviously. It hasn't even, like, we have no specs on it. We'll learn about that on the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
But this phone is such a better experience opposed to the Pixel 4a 5G. I went from the 4 because the 4 was not my favorite. Did not like it. So I downgraded to like the budget version. And I'm like, well, I can sell my 4, make a little bit of money on it, still buy the budget version, get money out of it, and then just have this phone that's newer. So it's not a flagship phone. It has lower specs, but it has 5G capability. So like when I drive through like a centimeter of Toledo every once in a while, I'll get 5G capabilities. I thought it would be cool. And it was just the worst experience I ever had, up until the point where it took a dive and did a little spaz.
And then that became the worst experience you've had with the phone.
Right.
See, I don't know that it's fair to compare the 4A with Samsung's latest, not flagship phone, but their latest, that's their high-end premium handset right now is the Fold, because it's a convertible handset. I would classify that as premium. I don't know that I would think that it's fair to compare that to the budget Google phone from 2 years ago.
That is absolutely true in a sense, and it's actually only a year old. They dropped the 4A 5G when they dropped the 5.
Right, but the 4A is based off of the 4, which is otherwise they would have called it the 5A 5G, right?
Right.
And we're now coming up on the 6th iteration of the Google Pixel phone. That's the only reason I say 2 years.
Right. And I switched from the 4 because it was just also like a wonky experience. I couldn't explain it except for connectivity was bad. It didn't function as well as my Pixel 2 did. It was, of course, faster. It was a flagship phone with like the fastest processor at the time. And it always like beat all the benchmarks and was a really highly spec'd phone. But it was just optimized so poorly. So I felt like I had nothing to lose going down to the 4A. And then that was terrible. I legitimately want to play around with the 6 because they're getting back to a phone that is actually impressive. But I had a bad experience. I'm going to try out Samsung, and I'm enjoying it probably because it's new, to me at least. But also I'm having a better experience with Android that Google makes on my Samsung thus far. I've had it for like 24 hours at this point, so I guess I'll calm down.
And see, and this is probably going to make a couple of people, slam on the brakes here in their car. I actually want to try the Galaxy Fold, but I think I'm just too invested into the Apple ecosystem for it to make sense for me to try. It's also very expensive, and Ashley would kill me. But it is something I'm curious about, because it's the idea of a phone and a tablet in one is very, very attractive to me. It's actually what's made me kind of look at the Surface Duo, I think it's called. Is that what it is?
Is that the Microsoft's version?
Yeah.
I've only seen it in pictures. Like, I've never actually like clicked on a news article or anything about it, but
okay,
it seems to be the same concept as the Fold.
See, and that's why, like with Samsung, like I don't know, part of me just wants to check it out despite the fact that it's Samsung. Like, I look at that and I go, man, I really want to try that. But anyways, so hey, that's quite an investment that you've made then. Congrats on your purchase. Hope you continue to enjoy it. I know there's been a couple of other investments that you personally have made and I've helped you make over the last couple of weeks. Want to share with the class?
Yeah, no problem, Teach.
Don't fucking call me that. Wes, for anyone living under a rock but somehow managed to discover and utilize the podcast app on their iPhone, what is cryptocurrency?
In its essence, cryptocurrency is an alternative currency. and it's decentralized. You don't have a single governing body saying this is worth this because we say it is, and you can do with it as you please. Instead, you just get this coin that has a limited supply, and the market determines what its value is based on availability and based on how many people agree that it's a real thing.
I think it's important to recognize, though, that it's a very high risk, high reward investment, whether you're talking about mining cryptocurrency or investing in the stock of cryptocurrency, because the value of it, just like the value of a dollar, changes every day. If you don't know that, go and look it up. The value of the US dollar, every global currency changes every day. The problem, though, is that with cryptocurrencies, it's a lot more volatile, because it's a lot younger, right? The US dollar has been around for centuries. Cryptocurrency has only been around for 31 years, 1990. Look it up. And it's only just now becoming more of a craze over the last, well, I mean, to be honest with you, the big flame that it got was from the 2008 housing crisis within the US government. I think that made a lot of people skeptical in the US government and its handling of money. And so a lot of people started looking at this decentralized currency, and it is just sort of snowballed from there. To be honest with you, I mean, in comparison to a lot of people, Wes and I have gotten into the game pretty late here. I started building a mining rig back in May. I finally added my last graphics card miner to the rig just about a month ago. So it's a process, because of how hard they are to get and all of that. But there's been a lot of adventures. You know, Ashley and I have camped outside of the Micro Center in Detroit multiple times to get a couple of cards at MSRP, because getting them at MSRP is a deal now. You know, think of all the products in your life that you buy and you never buy full price, and you're grateful to buy graphics cards at full prices. It's kind of mind blowing, because MSRP is technically the lowest price you're going to find them at now for the last year, and probably for the next year at least. And, you know, Wes just joined me in the adventure of mining. You know, I look at it more as like an investment to make some money, pay off some debt. You know, like Wes said, though, he's looking at it more of like an experimental kind of thing, and just kind of, you know, learning how it works and getting some coin out of it. You know, eventually it's going to return on investment, but, you know, he acknowledges, and just like I do, it's high risk, high reward, because the market could crash at any time. It could balloon at any time for any number of reasons. And I think that's important to kind of keep up with. If you're going to consider it, I should say, it's important to keep up with current events and news, because it's starting to get to the point where cryptocurrency does sort of, like, its value sort of does follow the stock market. If the stock market has a crappy day, Bitcoin takes a little bit of a dip too. And so it's just important to kind of recognize that, know what's going on around the world, and keeping up with current events that may or may not affect cryptocurrency if you plan to invest or mine. But Wes has had some fun adventures too, right, bud?
I did sit outside of a Best Buy with Kevin for roughly 17 hours so I could buy a graphics card, not even the best one, just a single graphics card. I guess a way to kind of visualize why one would sit outside 17 hours for a graphics card at MSRP. Imagine it like gaming systems currently. There's not enough being made for the demand, so we don't have supply to meet the demand, especially with people getting in the middle of that. Like, we have middlemen, so we have scalpers who will sit out. We have people who will create bots so they can buy them all up. And it's the same way. We have not enough resources for the materials that people want. And graphics cards are in the exact same category because they use chips, and they're for gaming, but they're also for something that can make you a lot of money if you're, you know, savvy about it.
So let me give you a real world example here. So Wes, I got there at about 4:00 the day before Best Buy opened and had these graphics cards, which already sounds pretty insane, right?
Not to me. We set out there. But yes, that's absurd.
So we got there at 4 p.m. and I was 46th in line. The guy who was first had been there since Wednesday They released on a Friday. He had been there since Wednesday at 1 a.m.
No,
That was the number one guy who got first pick. Now that is insanity. And just to give you an idea, it took, and Best Buy opens at, they started handing out these vouchers at 7:30, opened up at 8, checked out, whatever. So you're talking a total of like 15 hours essentially to buy one card each, because it's limit one per person, right? I think so. It's gotten to the point now where it's been like this for the last year, and people get wind of like an in-store drop. People know that Micro Center drops on certain days. Best Buy's been doing these in-store drops once a month for the last couple of months, and people find out about a week or two beforehand. And there's fights and lines. If you go look on Twitter and just do hashtag Best Buy, I guarantee you find the fight that. There was a couple of fights that broke out in California during this very event that we're talking about. It's just getting insane. And I think that over the last year, more and more people, like there's all these people who flip shoes, right? I call them shoe flippers.
That's clever.
and what they do, thanks. And what they do is they essentially, there's a new shoe that's coming out. I assume they have like, cook groups are what they're called typically, where there's just a group of people who are sharing information about a new shoe or a new sneaker that's coming out, and they go and buy them all. And that's it, because they're a limited edition run of them. And then they go and sell them for, I don't know, probably at least 50% markup. And it's pretty insane. And so I think a lot of these shoe flippers were like, these graphics cards could, I'm making about $50 each pair of shoes, but I could make more than that doing this. And so you start seeing these 50, 60-year-old Karens and Bruces show up at your local Best Buy who don't play World of Warcraft, and neither does their, out of college son that still lives with them. But yet they're all there looking for these graphics cards, and you know exactly what the fuck they're doing with them. A RTX 3070, which is a very middle of the road GPU. It's very good. Don't mistake me here. But it retails for $499, the Founders Edition, because there's different types of 3070s. There's different models, brands, whatever. Typically, right now, you will find those on Facebook Marketplace, Reddit, eBay for anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200. And that's a conservative number. So these are getting flipped for essentially double what they cost. And they're kind of worth it. I mean, I don't want to advocate for someone to go out who's like looking to mine to like go out and buy at that price. But Jesus, it's ugly, dude. It's ugly. And like you touched on, the chip shortage is not helping right now.
It crossed my mind while we were sitting out for graphics cards. The song Pumped Up Kicks. I'm like, what's the chances? And then when that dude who was like clearly off his rocker was talking about like eliminating us and before the cops got called on him, that was I was kind of sketched.
Yeah, we had a guy talking about, well, I don't want to get into it, but he was talking about a lot of things that were making pretty much everyone within earshot very uncomfortable. And one guy even called the cops. So to have him removed, he was not in line for a graphics card. I think he was a straggler from that club that's across the street from the Best Buy we were at, though.
No, one of the people ahead of us. So like, remember when that tent disappeared?
Yeah.
They left after he left because they also got kicked out because they hired him to stand in line for them, and he dipped out of line how many times, like just completely left and effed off for like several hours, came back even drunker each time and kept getting more rowdy. So they left after, and they paid him, of course. That's how he kept getting drunk. I'm pretty sure it was a homeless dude. He got kicked out and then they left. You were taking a brief nap during that.
Now that's an adventure right there. This is the shit I'm talking about. It's nuts. This is for a fucking computer part that you typically use to play video games with. But because it can do trillions of calculations per second, now it's the most sought after thing in the world right now because it literally makes money by verifying digital transactions on a blockchain. It's insanity. And I think if you had told anyone that this was going to happen when cryptocurrency was born in 1990 with Bitcoin and Dagger Hashimoto, I think nobody would have believed you. It's insane to think about. So, and that brings me to the next part is like this chip shortage, right? It's not helping. It's making everything worse. None of these channels of like, people need chips everywhere. People need chips for cars. People need chips for the graphics cards, obviously, for processors, pretty much anything that runs or beeps or uses any sort of electronic system requires a chip. And there's a shortage of them right now. Not because there's a shortage of labor or workers. Robots fucking make this shit. And the robots can't keep up with the human race. That's essentially what's going on right now. And because none of these channels of what you need are being satisfied, think about it. Like, let's say that we completely fixed the graphics card crisis. We just woke up tomorrow and it was just fucking fixed. And now you have this, now you can go down to this, you don't have to upscale production so much anymore to meet demand because you have met demand. Now you can focus on all of these other things that need chips. Cars, appliances, microwaves, whatever. I don't know. The possibilities here are endless, but they haven't. And so it's playing into this factor of just making everything else worse. There was a news article, and I'll link it in the podcast description if I can find it, Wes, but there was a news article that Ford had literally thousands of F-150s just sitting in a lot without a radio because they weren't getting any chips from the chip producing company TSMC out in Taiwan.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I've at least come across that.
I mean, you have people. Yes, you have people who play World of Warcraft who are being affected by this because they can't get new graphics cards for their computers, or they decided to stupidly build one right now, or maybe they needed to, but it's a terrible time right now to need a new computer. I mean, even Apple's being affected by it. A company that never has shortage issues because their CEO was their former supply chain manager and knows exactly what he's doing. Even Apple is being affected by this right now, to where when new products come out, there's actually a back order of them. And usually that doesn't happen. I think it's been several years since we've had an iPhone that there was like supply chain issues to where it took more than a week for it to get to you. But now I just ordered my 13 Pro Max and it won't be here until December. Like, think about that. That's insane. Like, one of the largest companies in the world. So it's really been a world and life-changing scenario. And the cryptocurrency piece is just one piece of the pie. Obviously, the pandemic is really what set this off and made this even worse, because we've had booms like this before in cryptocurrency market. This happened in 2016 with graphics cards, but it didn't really get outside the industry of graphics cards. So just so people know, like, it's been around and it's been a thing. So, hey, coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about a little bit more about governments and their role in cryptocurrency. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Life Midwest podcast. On the other side of the break, home of the Boston Red Sox. Just kidding. I'm your host, Kevin Palmer, and got my good buddy Wes Shirley back with us this week and going forward. Man, it's good to not be talking just with myself, you know. Thanks for that.
I just figured I'd let you get a little bit more silence before I start talking.
If you're looking for ways to support us, we do have a PayPal set up for direct donations, as it does cost money to run the show. PayPal.me/TheLifeMidwest. If you're looking for free ways to support us, you can also reach out to us through our social media platforms, all major social platforms at The Life Midwest. You can also email us at support@thelifemidwest.com. Speaking of which, we do have a new email this week. This is from one of our listeners, Laura Skiba. Wes, it's actually addressed to you.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I think you're in trouble, and I think I know exactly why, but
I might too.
It says, "Hello, Wes. It's Laura, not Lauren. I'm only a little bit heartbroken. I'm going to pause there because I do want to say that Wes likes to put his own spin on words. He said it so fast, there was just no way for me to, it was physically impossible for me to edit. And so I just let it go. She goes on to say, but in all seriousness, Kevin, I appreciate the continued shout outs and I'm glad I could kind of low-key inspire a little series for you. While I'm here, I've been having some thoughts while listening to the episodes following mine, if anyone cares to read them. She says, I hope that my story was able to inspire someone to chase their dreams, but I don't want anyone to think it's easy just to dive into a passion. It's really easy to say the Laura Skibas of the world are out here doing the damn thing, end quote. But there's a reason it took me until 2020 to do it, because it's freaking hard. I had existential crises almost daily, and I have to make a lot of sacrifices. I guess my point is that you need to be prepared for what's coming if you decide to uproot your life. It's not all rainbows and sunshine, but if you surround yourself with people who understand and support you and your dreams, that helps a lot. And most importantly, and this part is in all caps, take care of yourself. Listen to your body and mind when it's telling you to slow down. Take a day off. This is also in caps here. Treat yourself. You got this. Signed, Laura Skiba.
Well, thanks for the email, Lauren. I do apologize.
You're such a dick.
I do apologize. You're, honored guest on our show, and I've done the most disgraceful thing by calling you by somebody else's name. So my sincerest apologies, Laura.
I really appreciate you reaching out. Thanks a lot. It was good to hear from you. I don't want to talk about it this week too much, Wes, but amongst all of our cryptocurrency babbling that we did while we were camping for Best Buy, we came up with a pretty sweet idea for the podcast, and so for season 2, we have a little something coming for y'all, and I'm really excited to reveal more about that later on. How about you, man?
It's interesting. We've had our ups and downs as far as content goes. We've had it the show about nothing. We've had it as a show about social sciences. We've talked on philosophy. I think the economy at this point, like economics, and I mean we've talked about literally anything we wanted to talk about. And the next season, I think we're doing something a little different. Is that right?
That's right. But we're not going to talk about that yet. New season, the way that we've been looking at seasons is they start every year at the beginning of the year since we started the podcast the first week of the year this year. So season 2 will begin in January. So looking forward to that. And we will give you more information on it as we get closer. In the meantime, I want to steer back to cryptocurrency for today. It's an interesting thing to explore when you have something that is being endorsed and legalized tender for a country like El Salvador, and then you have another country like China that's banned it several times. So you have very opposing views on it from various different governments, and it's just been really interesting to see how people respond to it and how governments respond to it. So the one thing I want to ask you though, Wes, is why are there so many different types of cryptocurrencies? I think that's what a lot of people are probably thinking. There's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum Classic, there's Ethereum Lite, there's Dogecoin, there's Shiba Inu, there's Raven. You know what I mean? There's so many out there. Why? My
approach to it all might be a little too cynical to give like an answer that's inspiring. I have not too much faith in it in the long run, but it's super cool to play with in the meantime. Honestly, if I had the technology and the skills and actually knew how to create a cryptocurrency, I probably would. It would be called like D's Nuts coin. Why not? It's funny. People would purchase at least a little bit of it.
Yeah, I'd want to say that I have some D's Nuts.
Right? Like, yo, would you like some D's Nuts?
Could I pay in D's Nuts?
Right. Dude, imagine the first store to accept D's Nuts as a currency. It would probably be like Wendy's or some shit. They would announce on Twitter, like, yo, now accepting D's Nuts as a currency. Like, how would that not be good publicity for you? Sure, you'll have the few people who actually show up with their nuts in their hands. But like most people, like that would be like, it's a oddity. It's fun. Like, don't steal my ideals, Wendy's. You owe me if you do. But like, if crypto goes tits up, like the people who are mining it do have that rig to fall back on. They'll just part it out to gamers, and they'll make. Can we talk about
why we use the phrase tits up for something bad?
Well, I honestly don't know what the origins of this what is it, a colloquialism, a phrase,
yeah, like I don't know, like unless you're murdered in an ocean or a swimming pool and you like float to the like top of the surface, like that's the only way I can imagine tits up.
That's my assumption, is that someone's either floating on some water tits up because they drowned or they died and they're bloated and now they're tits up, or because you get buried face up generally, and if you're dead, your tits are up. I don't know. I would have to imagine.
You know what? That's a good enough answer for me, and I learned something today on the podcast, so I appreciate you.
Glad I could help. You answered your own question. You're like,
I love when I do that on the show. Hey, I do want to shout out Wes Shirley. It's been a lot of fun having you back and back from all of your adventures and misadventures. Maybe you can come over tonight, watch the Red Sox with me, and we can. You can let me toy with your new toy, and then I can beg Ashley for one. I also want to shout out Laura Skiba. Thank you so much for the email. Really appreciate you. I also want to shout out Big Tuna 007. I'm going to link his Twitch in the podcast description as well. Really appreciate the couple of episodes he was on the show with us for, and I haven't had a chance to check out what, come hang out at one of his streams, but I will be there, my dude. I promise that I will be there. Wes, who you want to shout out, bud? It's been a while.
Well, I do want to shout out Laura Skiba this time, as opposed to Lauren. Again, apologies, but also, thank you for being a valued guest, and then and also for inspiring. I liked his whole series about getting up and doing something. And I totally agree with, it being really hard to be a self-starter and start something for yourself. I think in the future, I would like to address on the existential crises almost daily portion of that email. Because as someone who has recently done a not too lengthy of a stint of really busting ass, I can totally echo that sentiment. I would also like to give a shout out to Jimmy, Big Tune. I have followed you on Twitch, and I did catch a part of your stream. My name is Salty AF Gaming. I don't really do anything on Twitch, so if anyone is trying to follow me, you're not going to get much out of there. Not yet anyways, but I have followed Jimmy, and what I saw was very funny. It was very good entertainment. I love his description. It was something like, if you want to watch me be absolutely bad at my favorite video games or something like that. And from that point on, I subscribed.
And I think that's the bright spot of really truly original content creators, right? Is because we all have access to the same video games and can play the same video games, but it's who makes those video games fun.
Absolutely. Another person I would like to shout out is my good co-host here, Kevin. Thank you for keeping the show going while I'm off doing God knows what, or whatever. Glad you had that rolling. It gave me entertainment every single week. I like the people you brought on. They were all interesting to listen to. I haven't talked to Jimmy since high school, so that was a blast from the past. That was cool. I had no idea he was going through such hard times, and again, shout out to Jimmy. Thank you for sharing with us. That was awesome. And just the courage to go on and say stuff like that. I wanted to get as deep as you did on the show, but I just kind of always shy away from it, and you just went and did it. So thanks for coming on and doing that with Kevin.
Thanks for coming on and doing it.
We all just doing it. Shit. Shoot from these nuts. The newest crypto.
And we come full circle. All right, folks, call your mom. We're going to get the hell out of here. Have a great week. We'll see you next Saturday on the Life Midwest podcast. Take care.
Deuces.